Hello there, welcome back. I'm going to look at Brass Eye now. Now, Brass Eye was a TV show done in the late 90s and brought back for special in the early 2000s, created by Chris Morris, and it followed up on what he did in Day to Day, where he was with other people who, like Steve Coogan, Armando Iannucci and things like that, people like that, who were making this a parody of modern Britain and some of his craziness. So now Chris Morris then moved on and did his own thing with the Brass Eye. The Brass Eye now is, even though that Day to Day was the thing that introduced Alan Partridge with Steve Coogan, the Brass Eye is kind of the most famous thing came out of it, in a sense of as a complete show. Like, Day to Day had a character that came out of it, but Day to Day is not as well known now as either Alan Partridge or Brass Eye. Brass Eye is kind of like the perfect version of it, finally. Where, because, I mean, basically they all went up separate ways after Day to Day and did their own thing, and everyone had their own thing that they did. But the kind of nasty satire that Chris Morris pulled out, and the absurdity he pulled out, went to Brass Eye. So it's an extension of that into something. And after that, he threw it away and basically did other stuff afterwards. I think he'd kind of figured it out, did it as perfectly as possibly do it, and then it was like, okay, time to do something different. This is done. And just rewatching the shows now, it's like, yeah, there was no reason to do any more after this. It was like, he kind of perfected it. There's nothing else to do with this scenario. Just nothing else to do. Just like, it's perfect. So, Brass Eye is basically a look at the media once technology hit, where you could edit quickly, you could where the publicity and the marketing of everything and the advertising could take over the content in a way that could make everything ridiculous. Because before, early on, you were kind of limited by what you had to use to exploit your story or whatever story you want to put over the public. You had basically television with very staid cameras, and if you knew anything about how the technology worked, it was impossible to do much with that technology. There wasn't much you could do exciting wise. I mean, to do anything exciting, you need to do a lot of time and make it as a film. And even then, it took forever. But in the 90s, you got video editing, video shooting. But there was video stuff before, but in the 70s, it was you needed a massive van to record things, and it was like the technology wasn't there to video record anything with great excitement. In the 90s, no, you could do quick editing, you could do lots of things, you could do lots of graphs. So Chris Morris took what most people would just do nonsense with and put it into insane nonsense and just parody the news. And to do that, he brought in a bunch of actors who he knew, who could play different parts, like Mark Heap, actors like that, whose faces you know, Gina McKee, and had them do absurd things in the show, playing different characters who had a variety of strangeness, is the best way. Because Morris was, at that time, into caricatures, but caricatures that were, you know, you could sense some truth to them. It's like, we've seen all these kind of people in real life, but it's tamed to the absurd. But what he also did was, because he was so deadpan, he would get celebrities to actually go and do what we'd now call being an activist, where you would say something to show how good you are, to say, like, this thing has to stop, and my name should help stop it. And had them read some of the most absurd stuff possible, and they didn't realise it was taking the mickey. And the most famous one here, shown here, was we made up this drug called Cake, and he got people to read out things about saying how all this stuff Cake did to a person, how it was awful, and he threw in absurd things that supposedly happened to people when they were undercaked, and he had all these weird names for different organisations that if you stepped back and looked at it and realised he was taking the mickey, but if you were so serious, you wouldn't get it. And people made fools of themselves, and he actually got an MP to read stuff out in Parliament. And even within the thing, he said, this is a made-up drug. But he said it's made up of this, this, and this, and lots of different chemical components. No one understood what they were. So they just thought this must be real. And I could get my face to paper doing something important. So it is like taking what we have now, which is the kind of absurdity of people on Twitter, people online, people everywhere saying, I'm an expert on this. We should do this, this, and this. And it's like, no, you're a moron. So this film pretty much took what the internet is going to be in over the next 20 years and perfected it, while also making it the news, because the news had already gone absurd and had already was showing things that were not true and were scaremongering over certain themes of what people knew would sell a paper or sell a show to advertisers so they could get paid. So there's always a scam element to it, even though they're saying, well, this is a news, we don't scam you. And it was like, yes, you do. And this show showed how they scam you by creating news out of nothing, or creating news out of moral panic that's not really real. So Morris had different themes for different stories. He had drugs, he had sex, he had crime, he had religion, and of course, and his most notorious one, he did pedophilia, and his special, which caused lots of complaints, even though what he was doing was Mickey taking the absolutely crazy thing at the time of people being absolutely over the top in their fear of pedophilia, even though it was a problem, but it was within a certain limit. It didn't need to be made to sound crazy the way it was, and Morris took the mickey out of that and got him in trouble. But it was something that people see with lots of things. You see even now is any kind of news story that, there's an issue which has to be dealt with, but you should deal with it in a way that's mature and focused, and this shows you how that never happens. Just look at the Trump administration. There was lots of stuff there that was dodgy as hell that needed to be looked at with a very mature way to actually challenge the Trump administration and make it difficult for it. Instead, it was just blah, 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 blah. And weird stories with Russiagate and things. And so even if there's a bit of it was true, it was made so absurd that you were like, I can't believe any of this stuff. And this show just looked at that kind of thing of, you take any story and you add celebrity status, experts who are not experts, absurd claims. Just look at the what's happened with the COVID stuff. Some absurd claims we've had on all sides with that, and this show just looks at all that phenomenon, how we actually, by our own stupidity, and I'm not realising how stupid we are as people at the time, mocking the absurd extremes of every side of an argument, and how, as a society, most organisations protect itself rather than actually look at the facts, and most organisations are set up to exploit whatever it needs to exploit to survive, and all the absurd things that you can do with things, and then the absurd things that people believe in conspiracy theories. Morris has a whale of a time taking what's something's a concern, taking it to the extreme of bizarre conspiracies and making people believe it, even though it's so obviously nonsense. And it's this is what you see on the internet all the time now. And it's just looking at how human behaviour through individuals and through organisations can lead to insanity if unchecked, if people don't stop and say, wait a minute, what? This is a show that just looks at that kind of crazy, that feeling of, oh, we need to have an opinion about this, or we need to say something about this, oh, I need to be on TV, oh, I don't understand this, but I must say something about it, and oh, we can make profits out of this, and we get people gullible enough to speak about it. And you have lots of stuff like heavy electricity, which is wonderful. You've drugs called Yellow Bentines and Boz, and you've all these talking heads where everything's broken down to like good or bad science, and just absurdity. And there's a joke about middle class people thinking only they can take drugs, but if it goes to the poor or the minorities, that's going to be disastrous because they're not civilized like us. And there's stuff like that going on all the time in the shows. Like these smug people who think they're ahead of everyone else and who rule the media essentially, and all their absurd assertions floating through the show. And you've all these people who are in the media showing how stupid they are and how they will not research anything, and how that mechanism can allow people to publicly support stuff they don't understand and lead to an outrage cycle that's absolutely meaningless. And it just looks at how human beings and organisations can absolutely make a pig's ear of any problem that requires actual intelligence. Instead, they will go all out to avoid the question and create ones that are absolutely useless. So I'm trying not to actually give you many jokes. I'm trying to get you to go and watch it because it's so well done and it's so funny. So I'm trying not to see any of the great jokes. I'm just trying to say a few of the famous things that you probably have heard of already and why it's interesting. I'm trying to avoid saying any jokes because the jokes are really funny. Because Chris Morris has a great sense of humour and a great sense of deadpan delivery of absolutely absurd nonsense. So go watch it. It is so good. It's one of the great British satires. And it's underseen. So go see this. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back soon with something else. Right, bye for now.